Good morning. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Free Press Media Press Inc., an alternative parties books publisher, sponsors this podcast. I'm Andrew Bouchard.
Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Today we have another exciting guest on our podcast. They're going to talk about ranked choice voting, one of our favorite topics here. They're going to introduce themselves. So kindly give us your name and the organization you represent, and then we can talk to you about your exciting activities.
Great. My name is Thomas Marciano, and I work with Rank the Vote Oklahoma.
Excellent. Thomas, let us get started by you kindly giving us an introduction to yourself, a brief biographical sketch.
Sure. I just recently graduated from the University of Oklahoma with a degree in mechanical engineering, and I'm now working in Tulsa as a software engineer. I've been with Rank the Vote Oklahoma for about a year now.
Sounds good. You said you're working as a what type of engineer?
I'm a software engineer in Tulsa.
Oh, okay, interesting. So how does your software engineer position inform your political outlook?
Well, it makes me think of things analytically, because one of the main reasons why I'm interested in ranked choice voting is because I'm tired of the way things are being run, and I feel we need to bring changes to the system in order to bring changes to our democracy, because we're continually trying to do the same thing, hoping for different results. And if we don't change anything, then how can we expect anything to be different?
Makes sense. So kindly tell us how you got involved in your organization here.
Sure. Well, I was realizing that in order to get different results in our elections, we have to more or less change our voting system. And I learned about ranked choice voting and how it can help bring about different elections and bring about different results and give people more choices. And I looked up to see, I wonder if my great state of Oklahoma has a ranked choice voting organization. And it turns out it did. And I went to a few statewide meetings, and I realized that this would be a group I want to spend more time with. And I've gotten more involved, and now I'm on the team lead staff, and I'm running the technology side of things.
Okay, so you said you're on the staff of the organization, right?
That's correct.
Some of our audience members may want to get involved in a nonprofit like your organization, a political advocacy group, to change the system. So kindly explain some of your responsibilities in your position.
Sure. As the technology lead with the group, I'm in charge of updating our website if we get more people who have chosen to recommend ranked choice voting and get behind it. I'm also helping out with digital outreach, and I am coordinating basically our social profiles. I'm running our Twitter account, and we're also moving into more in-person education. So we're trying to set up, we've been successful at different tabling operations in order to spread the good word about ranked choice voting to the state.
Sounds good. It sounds like you're using your day job skills with this position you have here.
Yeah, because what I found is that really there's usually always a more efficient way to do things. And especially with a digital marketplace, really all you need is a good idea and then get that good idea in front of people, and that's 90% of the work. And you have lots more opportunities in the online marketplace of ideas to advertise what you believe in, as opposed to in person where you're working one-on-one. When you do stuff online, you can contact hundreds, if not thousands of people with the same message. And if that appeals to all of them, then all of a sudden you have so many more people who are at least now more aware of ranked choice voting and maybe even choose to help us further.
Sure. So kindly tell our audience the mission of your organization, your philosophy and outlook.
Sure. Rank the Vote Oklahoma is a nonprofit 501c3, and we are an educational group, and we are trying to spread the word of ranked choice voting and make people more familiar with it. And our ultimate goal is to get ranked choice voting to a statewide question so it can be put before the good people of Oklahoma. Now, we have tried to go through the legislative route. We've worked with an Oklahoma representative, Mickey Dollins, and he's been of great help to us, and he put forward a state question bill to the Oklahoma House to see if we can get that passed. Unfortunately, that was pushed until the next legislative session, so we have a year to try to gin up support locally for the legislature again. But of course, we think that it's pretty unlikely that the legislature would actually pass this, which is why we want to go ahead and put it for everyone as a statewide question on the ballot.
Sure. So kindly tell our audience some of the arguments in favor of ranked choice voting, why people should support ranked choice voting.
Sure. Well, simply enough, ranked choice voting gives you more choices. Because, I mean, as I'm sure you know, we have problems with our current system, plurality voting or first past the post voting. Everyone gets one vote for one candidate, and the candidate with the most votes wins. Now, this can be pretty limiting, and the largest problem with this is the spoiler effect, where let's say you look at, the Florida election in 2000, where Ralph Nader, people came in and voted for him, and there's no problem with voting for a third-party candidate. It's just that in the state of Florida, if all those candidates, if all the people who had chosen to vote for Ralph Nader in the state of Florida had chosen to vote for one of the two-party candidates, we may have gotten a different result. And so
Yes.
the solution here is not to not vote for third-party candidates, because if you want to support someone, you should absolutely support them. Maybe what we need is a different system. And so ranked choice voting would allow you to say, oh, you can vote for Ralph Nader as number one, and then you can vote for any other candidate as your number two, and instead of one vote, you rank your preferences in order. And the main pull of this is that it no longer incentivizes people to vote strategically. You're allowed to vote for who you think you enjoy the most as your candidate, and if you think they're not as likely to win, you put someone else who's maybe more likely to win as your second place option. And again, the main takeaway is it means that you're allowed to support your first place candidate with fewer consequences than the current voting system. So people can vote for who they want as their first choice.
Sure. So it sounds like you're saying this is a great way to balance voting your conscience with practical matters.
Yeah, because I really hate it when people say, oh, you shouldn't vote for a third-party candidate like Ralph Nader, even though you may like exactly what he's saying and he's who you want to win, because you're just stealing votes from someone else. I hate that argument. But
Yes.
with the current voting system we have, arguably it's kind of true. And I think that's such a shame. And instead of just saying, oh, we should only ever vote for the Republican and the Democrat because they have the highest probability of winning, that's ridiculous. We're such a large country, and yet every presidential cycle, we only have two real choices for president. I think it's kind of ridiculous.
Yes.
And so I think ranked choice voting would allow us to actually vote for the people we want to vote for and not have to worry about strategic voting where, oh, we vote for who we think is going to win rather than who we want to win.
Yes, that sounds great. So kindly tell our audience, what are some objections people give to you about ranked choice voting, and how would you overcome these objections?
Sure. Well, I think the Center for Election Science has a lot of great stuff on different voting systems. Their criticism for ranked choice voting is the center squeeze effect. So suppose you had three candidates, one on the left, one on the right, and one in the center. Now, if your candidates on the left and the right are semi-close to the center, then you generally have the center candidate with the less votes than the other two get squeezed out of the race, and then people still have to make a choice between left or right, and the center candidate might not win in that case. But imagine if you had the left and right candidates become more and more extreme and politically polarized, as it's happening now. Imagine you have a far left candidate, a far right candidate, and someone in the center. Then in that scenario, someone in the center would be more likely to win. And another way to look at that issue is, that someone in the center may get squeezed out some of the time due to the different systems of how it works, but at least now you're able to support the center candidate who you want to support without the concern that, I can't vote for the center candidate because I'm going to throw away my vote. And I think the most important thing is that when you get more choices and you can actually vote for who you want to vote for, it shows people, in the first round, this candidate got more support than previously because people actually want to support this candidate. And that would allow that party or that political movement to grow because now there's no consequences for people voting for them to encourage their growth. Does that make sense?
It does. It does indeed.
But I would just say that for ranked choice voting, What really bothered me when I first started getting into this was I was looking for the perfect voting system that would be perfectly representational, allow for multi-party support, all this nice stuff. And now, from what I've seen, ranked choice voting is the movement that's getting the most support nationwide for alternative voting, and it does solve many of the problems with plurality voting. But, and not to say there aren't also other good voting methods aside from ranked choice voting, this just happens to be the one where, after analysis, I'm the most confident that this is the one that has the highest probability of being enacted nationally on different state levels, and it's also one, since it solves our problems, is one that we want to consider.
Makes sense. So kindly tell our audience some of the activities your organization is doing. You mentioned some things about lobbying with legislators and doing a website. What else is your organization doing to advance this cause?
Sure. We also organize around different local events, farmers market, fairs, that kind of stuff. And we are set up very close by, and we try to kind of corral people and say, hey, are you interested in helping democracy and giving us more choices in elections? Now, of course, when you phrase it like that, most people, if they have time, will say, oh, I'd love to talk more about that. And that's how we can get people interested in at least informing them about what ranked choice voting is. We also have a series of online meetings. We meet weekly with our team leads, and we have different groups. We have our policy and research team that is looking at how the policies actually impact the different election laws, and that does more research. For example, here in Oklahoma, you can't do anything, you cannot change elections locally for different cities. You have to do it at the state level, because here in Oklahoma, the rule is that every locality must have the same voting system across the state.
Oh my.
And so that just means that, so say, for example, in Oregon, they started with the city of Portland. You can't do that here. You have to go to state level. So what we've learned, unfortunately, is that really it's an all or nothing thing where we either get it in the state of Oklahoma or it fails and we don't. I mean, then we probably go back and keep trying again. That's one of the things we've learned through a policy and research team.
Does that require a constitutional amendment in Oklahoma, or is that something that it can pass by the legislator?
That's something that can pass through the legislature.
Okay.
Actually, I do believe it requires an amendment to the Constitution. I think you're correct, because the way I think it does say explicitly in the Constitution how the way we vote is it's plurality voting. It would require a change in, say, now in the state of Oklahoma, we would bring about ranked choice voting. So it does require a state constitution change, but you can change a state constitution through your ballot initiatives. And then the question would be, would you get the ballot initiatives through the legislative process, where it goes before the people, or do you get 150,000 signatures, I think is what the number is, to then get on the state ballot? So yeah, it does require a change, but it's totally possible to actually affect that change.
Okay, so does your organization have a view which one is better, or do you play it by ear to see what is gaining momentum as a ballot initiative or by the legislator, or both?
Well, I mean, we're happy if it happens either way, but definitely would be easier if it would pass the because it's definitely easier to get a group of, say, 100 legislators to approve it, to then put it before the people of Oklahoma as a state ballot. That's easier than collecting 150,000 signatures to get it on the state ballot.
Sure.
But that of course would be easier, but in the state of Oklahoma, you basically have single party control, which is the Republican Party. And I have nothing against the Republican Party, really. It's just they're definitely not going to want to pass a voting system that would hurt their power, basically. And I would do the exact same thing if I was in their position. But I think you have to put before the people and say, okay, do the people want this? Because of course people in power will say, oh, we're very happy with the way things are. Why on earth do we want to bring about change, even if that change is more democratic?
Sure.
But no, we're excited. Yeah?
I'm sorry, go ahead. You're saying you're excited?
No, I was just going to say we're excited at the opportunity that we've actually gotten the attention of the Oklahoma Democratic Party, because they're in a situation where they don't have the votes to put it over, but they're more or less on our side. We have many libertarian candidates and Democratic candidates who have advocated for ranked choice voting, so they bring about more democratic control, whereas we have very few Republicans. And I'm not saying that passing ranked choice voting in the state would be bad for conservative voters. It wouldn't be. It'd be better for them as they would get more choices.
Yes.
And I generally lean more to the left myself. I don't mind living in a conservative state. What I do mind is that it's the same party being elected every time.
Yes.
I would much rather have, just because I think when you have one party that stays in power for a long period of time, just it's in its nature that it will gradually over time become corrupted and less democratic. And again, I'm really not trying to call them out and say, oh, they're bad people. It's just I feel when you have more political parties in the system, it's a more democratic process, and I'm very pro-democracy. So.
Yes, definitely. So, Thomas, how can our listeners out there support your organization?
Well, you can look up ranked choice voting online, and there are some national organizations that are supporting it. If you want to support us directly, you can go to www.rankthevoteok.com. And we would love your eyes. Of course, we would love your money, but of course, don't feel obligated to contribute if you don't feel like you should. But yeah, I feel like if you want to bring up, I know this is the Alternative Parties podcast, and I think that unfortunately the way things are right now, unless you have some massive change, you're not going to get alternative party really winning very much, just again because of the way the system is set up.
Sure.
It's only changing the system if we want multiple parties that's possible. We have to change the system to bring about this, or wait for some massive social upheaval. And I don't know about you, but I don't really want to wait for some massive social upheaval to change the political climate.
No. Better take action now.
I mean, because I like the democracy we have. I think we have a sick democracy, but we have a democracy here in America, and we can make gradual changes to the system and improve it and bring control back to the people, and that would be a benefit to the entire country. And I think right now ranked choice voting has been passed in Alaska and Maine, and the voters there, at least preliminary reports, are saying that they're enjoying the fact that they have more choices on their ballots.
Good.
And it makes them feel, at the very least, that they're more engaged in the process. And we feel like ranked choice voting, if you can make people, again, I know this is subjective, but if you can make people feel like they have more say in the democratic system, you may get a higher voter turnout, and that higher voter turnout in and of itself might create the push for more alternative parties.
Perfect. That's what we like to hear.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast today. We appreciate you talking about your organization and ranked choice voting.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Go alternative parties, and let's go out and save our democracy.
All right. We wish you all the best in all your personal and professional endeavors.
Thanks very much.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.